They laughed when they saw her walk onto the range. They stopped laughing when she pulled the trigger. The desert air shimmered with heat as 19-year-old Emma Rodriguez stepped up to the firing line, her boots crunching against the gravel of the Nevada training facility. Around her, a dozen Navy SEALs stood with arms crossed, eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses, mouths curved into smirks that said everything their silence didn't. One of them, a barrel-chested operator named Garrett, nudged his buddy and muttered just loud enough for her to hear, "They're really letting kids play with the big toys now, huh?" Emma didn't turn around. She'd heard worse. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. The M107 Barrett rifle lay before her on the bench like a sleeping beast. 50 pounds of steel and precision engineering. A weapon designed to punch through armored vehicles at distances that would make most shooters dizzy just thinking about it. The current record for accuracy at extreme range had been held by SEAL team operators for nearly a decade, men with thousands of hours of combat experience. Men who'd made impossible shots in impossible conditions while the world burned around them. And here stood Emma, a college sophomore who looked like she should be studying for midterms, not handling a weapon that could disable a tank. The range officer, a grizzled Marine named Patterson, glanced at his clipboard, then at Emma, then back at his clipboard as if hoping the paperwork might have changed. He'd seen countless hotshots come through these gates, all of them certain they'd rewrite the history books. Most couldn't hit a barn door at half the required distance. "Miss Rodriguez," Patterson's voice carried across the range, formal and detached, "you'll be engaging targets at 1,800 meters. Winds gusting northwest at 12 to 15 knots. Temperatures 102 degrees. You have 5 attempts. The current record is 4 out of 5 hits with a grouping of 8 inches. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." Her voice was steady. Too steady for someone who should have been terrified. Garrett whispered something to the man beside him, and laughter rippled through the group of SEALs like a wave of dismissal. Emma heard it all, the assumption that she was someone's daughter, that this was some publicity stunt, that she'd gotten here through connections rather than capability. She'd spent the last 3 years of her life hearing variations of the same theme: women didn't belong in this world. Especially not teenage girls who looked like they'd blow away in a strong wind. What they didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that Emma had grown up on a ranch in West Texas where coyotes weren't just a nuisance but a genuine threat to livestock and livelihood. Her grandfather, a Vietnam veteran and champion marksman, had placed a rifle in her hands when she was 7 years old and taught her that shooting wasn't about strength or aggression. It was about breath control, patience, and the ability to quiet every thought in your mind until nothing existed except you and the target. By age 12, she was outshooting him. By 15, she'd won her first national competition. By 17, she'd set records that made recruiters from every branch of the military start calling her parents' house. Emma settled into position behind the Barrett, feeling its weight settle against her shoulder like an old friend. She pressed her cheek to the stock, her eye finding the scope's perfect circle of glass. Through it, the world transformed into a tunnel of magnified reality. 1,800 meters downrange, a steel target the size of a dinner plate shimmered in the heat waves rising from the desert floor. The distance was staggering. Over a mile. At that range, she wasn't just fighting the mechanics of ballistics. She was fighting wind, temperature, humidity, the rotation of the earth itself. The bullet would take nearly 3 seconds to reach its target, traveling at over 2,000 feet per second. But still subject to gravity's patient pull, she thought she'd never doubt herself. She was wrong. For just a moment, Emma felt the weight of every dismissive glance, every whispered insult, every time someone had suggested she was wasting her time chasing a dream in a world that didn't want her there. Her finger trembled slightly on the trigger guard. Then she remembered her grandfather's words. "The rifle doesn't care who's holding it, kiddo. It just knows honest work from pretend." Emma took a breath, held it, let half of it out until her lungs found that perfect stillness between inhale and exhale. The world narrowed to a pinpoint. Her heartbeat slowed. The wind's whisper became a language she could read. She squeezed the trigger. The Barrett roared like thunder, its massive muzzle brake redirecting the blast in a shockwave that kicked up dust in a perfect circle around her position. The rifle's recoil was tremendous, but Emma had braced for it, her body absorbing the impact with practiced ease, downrange. There was a moment of impossible silence. Then the distinctive ping of metal, striking metal, echoed back across the desert. Patterson's voice came through the speakers, flat and professional. "Hit center mass." Behind her, the laughter stopped. Emma didn't pause. She worked the bolt, chambering another round with mechanical precision. Adjusted for the slight wind shift she'd felt against her cheek. Breathed. Fired. Ping. Hit. Again, the bolt clicked. The scope's crosshairs found their mark through heat and wind and distance that made the target look like a mirage. Ping. Hit. The SEALs weren't laughing anymore. They'd moved closer, forming a semicircle behind her position, their postures transformed from mockery to something else entirely. Garrett's arms had uncrossed. His jaw was tight. Fourth shot. Emma's hands moved with the kind of automatic precision that comes from 10,000 hours of practice distilled into pure muscle memory. She barely registered pulling the trigger. Her mind had entered that flow state where time stretched and compressed simultaneously, where the impossible became inevitable. Ping. Hit. Patterson's voice had changed now, carrying an edge of disbelief that his professional training couldn't quite mask. 4 for 4. Grouping measures. 6.3 inches. 6.3 inches at over a mile away. Better than the record. Emma had one shot left. One chance to cement something that couldn't be dismissed or diminished. Her shoulders ached from the Barrett's punishment. Sweat stung her eyes. But her hands remained steady as she chambered the final round. The wind had shifted. Again, a gust that would have torn the bullet off course if she didn't account for it. She could feel the SEALs behind her holding their breath, feel the weight of every assumption they'd made crumbling in real time. This wasn't about proving them wrong anymore. This was about proving herself right. Emma fired. The bullet carved through desert air on a trajectory so perfect it seemed guided by something beyond physics. 3 seconds of flight. 3 seconds where nobody moved, nobody breathed, nobody dared to break this spell. Ping. Hit. 5 for 5. Final grouping. 5.8 inches. Patterson's voice cracked just slightly on that last measurement. New record by a significant margin. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Garrett stepped forward. He pulled off his sunglasses, and Emma could see his eyes clearly for the first time, not filled with mockery or resentment, but with something that looked like genuine respect. "How long you been shooting?" he asked quietly. "Since I was 7. He nodded, slowly processing. "We train years for shots like that. Most of us still couldn't make all 5. Emma stood, her legs slightly shaky, not from fear, but from the adrenaline finally catching up with her body. "My grandfather told me something once," she said, her voice carrying across the now silent range. "He said the target doesn't care about your age, your gender, or your rank. It just cares whether you can do the work." Garrett extended his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Emma took it. His grip was firm, professional, the handshake of one warrior acknowledging another. "Well," he said with the ghost of a smile, "guess we just got schooled by a 19-year-old. The story spread through military circles like wildfire. Emma Rodriguez, the teenager who'd shattered records held by some of the most elite operators in the world. But for Emma, the moment that mattered most wasn't the record or the recognition. It was the quiet nod Garrett had given her as she'd packed up to leave. The acknowledgement that she'd earned her place through skill and dedication rather than novelty or exception. Because respect isn't given, it's proven. One impossible shot. At a time dot, and in the shimmering heat of that Nevada desert, a 19-year-old girl had proven something that no amount of mockery could ever take away. That capability has no age limit, and excellence speaks louder than doubt ever could. If this story moved you, drop a comment below and let me know what record you'd love to break. And if you believe in the power of proving doubters wrong, hit that subscribe button, because there are so many more stories like Emma's waiting to be told.